Ladies and gentlemen, RosterWatch Nation, welcome back to the epic RosterWatch Podcast, brought to you by RosterWatch.com. We are back after the holidays, and we're shifting gears. We're getting into offseason talk, some dynasty talk, some rookie talk, some NFL draft stuff, some Senior Bowl, and there's no better way to kick it off than with the guest that we have today, one of the true greats, a guy that we've seen hustling at every offseason event that we've been at, going back, a decade. He's now, you can find him on Twitter at FB Game Plan, also at Football Game Plan, also now at CBS Sports HQ, covering the NFL, covering college football. His name is Emory Hunt. Emory, awesome to have you, brother. Great to see you. Great to hear your voice, man.
Always a pleasure, man. Good seeing you as well. We normally see each other in Indy somewhere or at the Senior Bowl, but now we're here virtually. But it's all 2020, so. Good to see you, man.
Yeah, man. Well, you're up there in New York. I'm down here in Texas, so it's a little bit shorter of a trip to Mobile for me. So I'm thinking I'll be able to make it out there and just get in the stands and stay the fuck away from everybody and and get there. Now, as far as the combine, there's no way that they're going to let us pile into that convention center this year. Are you holding out any slight hope that they might possibly allow it, or even if they did allow it, would you just say there's no way I'm doing it? Or I don't even think that they would. I don't even think there's going to be media. I think there's going to be a bunch of stuff like this where you can maybe talk to the prospects over Zoom or some weird deal like that here in 2020.
You know what's interesting? I find myself almost at least once a day thinking back to, man, we were really at the combine, in bars, in restaurants, close, tight, all while
shaking hands,
all that stuff. Is like, man, I wonder if anybody got sick out there, because we literally was like a walking pack of people all week long in the cold, in the snow, and it was weird to like, man. But I agree with you. I do think the only way they can make the combine possible, and the players probably wouldn't even agree to do this, they would have to fly all the players out there a week before, test and quarantine, make sure they all come back negative, and then, have the events like they would this year. And I don't even think you can even bring the media there, considering how many people coming from all parts of the country. So I don't even, if they have it, they would have to have it as players only. And like you said, do something like this for the media where you ask questions via Zoom. But having both there, I think that's highly, you can't. It's just not set up for, everybody to be back in there for this year.
You're packed in like sardines around the podiums. Everybody's like yelling these questions and projecting like droplets, like it's right next to one another. I don't think it's gonna happen for us in the media this year. You got to think for the prospects, they're going to find a way. They found a way to get everything else done. Whenever a lot of people thought that there wouldn't be a college season, there wouldn't be a pro season. We got our seasons. I figured that the NFL, man, these scouts, and better than anybody, Emory, and these scouts and these evaluators, they want to see somebody run. They want to see everybody run their 40 on that same damn patch of turf, right, on that same corner of Lucas Oil Stadium as they have for every other class. They need exact comps for these guys. Like, they're going to find a way to make it work. It's going to be from what I've heard from talking to a few agents is maybe. And it falls in exactly what you said, maybe expanded out to 2 weeks. And if that was, I didn't really ask why, but it would make perfect sense with what you're saying for getting them there, maybe getting everybody tested, maybe having them be in smaller groups, have like spread the wide receivers out into 4 groups instead of 2 or something like that. So there aren't as many people around one another, but it's going to be different this year, but just like everything else is, we're going to make it work, and we will get through it. Hey, so just all that stuff aside, like, let's just talk about some of these draft prospects. And I wanted to ask you first about Jamar Chase, who didn't play this year. And it's a topic that's at the front of my mind because in one of my dynasty leagues, I just traded, and this is a 2 quarterback league, tight end premium type of setup. And I lost this year Christian McCaffrey, Dak Prescott, and Joe Burrow. So I finished second or third to last. I haven't looked this morning to see how things ended up with final points. But basically, I made a trade for my first round pick for CeeDee Lamb and an upgraded tight end, getting me from Zach Ertz up to, or at least a younger tight end in Hunter Henry. And I traded that pick away for it. What do you after one season, I'd be interested to hear how you compare a guy like CeeDee Lamb from what you've seen out of him and sort of the bird in hand that we know that he is, to Jamar Chase, where it's like he looks awesome to me and he looks like he could be a future just dominant NFL player. And but I think he was very smart to look at this offense and say, I might come back. If I come back, I'm not going to put up the same numbers. I might lose some draft stock because of it. How do you see that situation playing out? What do you think of Jamar Chase? And I would kind of like to hear selfishly what you think about trading away a pick that could land me Jamar Chase for CeeDee Lamb in my dynasty league.
You know, I like CeeDee Lamb. I think he is one that does a great job of scoring the ball. So you put the ball in his hands, he's looking to score, and he's going to find a way to try to get into the end zone. So, you know, you have that potential with Lamb, and he's only going to get better. So I probably wouldn't trade CeeDee Lamb. As far as Jamar Chase is concerned, you know, there's a good mix of a comp for him. You could look at Devontae Adams and see some Jamar Chase. You can look at Tyler Boyd and see some Jamar Chase. I think what you like about both players and why I use those two guys as a comp is the fact that you see a fluidity within Jamar Chase's game. He's able to win off the line of scrimmage. He's able to stack and track a defensive back and shows a good fluidity to get in and out of his breaks and make catches over his shoulder, awkward platform catches where he's going to help out a quarterback. And he, like CeeDee Lamb, just has a knack for getting into the end zone. So, I could see the dilemma here, but you always want to go with the for sure product, especially at that position. If they performed as a rookie, they're going to get even better in their second year, because usually you're thinking, okay, year 2, the wide receiver will make the impact in year 3. But right now he's been solid as a rookie as far as Lamb is concerned, and he's going to get better next year. But Chase is going to be excellent, I believe, as a rookie, just like Justin Jefferson was coming out from LSU. And, Chase is one that, he's a guy that has the body control and the fluidity of a dude that's 5'10", but he's legit like 6'1", I believe. So yeah, I'm a big fan of his game.
Well, and just Emory, and I probably should have, I should have introduced you better so people could understand the credentials that you have when you talk. Like you're a really good evaluator. You work with these different. I think you work with these different all-star bowls. I know we've talked about that before. Consult with different people. You call college games for major broadcast networks. You played. Where did you play semi-pro football, or did you play? I know you played in college. Football. College. Okay. So you played running back in college. You always have a really good eye for those guys. And I want to talk to you about running backs, but beforehand, I want to talk about some of these receivers, because you mentioned Justin Jefferson, and when we look at what he was able to do this year, so many of us in the draft community, I'm not saying you, but maybe even I fell into this bucket a little bit. It said, well, Justin Jefferson was a 3-star athlete coming in. Of course, the combine really helped us out with his explosive measurables. We said, all right, well, so we could put this stuff aside about whether or not this guy's explosive. But he did play a lot out of the slot, and he did kind of seem like the beta to Jamar Chase in that final season of 2019 with the Joe Brady offense there with Joe Burrow and everything else. Jamar Chase was the real splash play kind of. I don't want to say an alpha and a beta, but it seemed like Jamar Chase was kind of the number one as far as just the athletic, specimen, and the dude who was just, always going so big with these big touchdowns, like you said, the big athletic catches, the acrobatic, body control to contort and go get these things. With the fact that Justin Jefferson has surpassed our expectation at every level so far, that's the flip side of the coin with me. It's like, if I thought that Jamar Chase was more athletic and maybe even more impressive at the college level than Justin Jefferson, and now, Jesus, I see what Justin Jefferson's done. Were you expecting this kind of year out of Justin Jefferson? And what do you think about this dilemma? Like, does it even matter? But like, what do you think about all of that?
Well, you could have two good receivers, so you don't have to have one or the other.
I guess so. Yeah.
And when we graded, Justin Jefferson at Football Game Plan and Scouting, we had 81 grade on him. So that's like Pro Bowl and up, right? And we had him as our number 3 slot receiver. So we thought highly of him coming out based on what we saw on film. And what I liked about him was the fact that because he primarily played in the slot, you can see that he can do that at the pro level. So anything outside of that was going to be a bonus because now you have a guy that can play multiple positions. And this is something that receiver coaches always talk about now, more so than when I played. It was everyone had a position, but now guys are being taught to the design of the play, and it's almost like they're positionless. So here's the concept we're running. So therefore, if Jamar Chase is out for a play and they need Justin Jefferson to move over, you can't say, well, no, I only play in the slot. You know the concept, you know the route, go out there and run the route. So you're seeing that in Minnesota. You're seeing him just blossom. And Chase is going to be good in his own right because Chase is a really good receiver. Like I said, the fluidity, the ease in which he catches the football, and the ability, like CD Lamb, to go and try to find the pylon and put the ball inside of it. So I just like the fact that he's just a really good total receiver, someone that I would enjoy watching play football because it looks like he played a lot of football growing up, just has those innate nuances in the game that many people don't have.
What about Jerry Jeudy? Well, he's just dropping too many damn balls, man. Every time I turn it on and I'm watching a Denver game, I can't tell. Like I've never been a huge Drew Lock guy. I don't know what you thought of Lock coming out, but it's not all Lock's fault. I mean, he's dropping some of these passes. That was part of his profile coming out. But I was under the impression that maybe, we've seen, say, a guy like Will Fuller who had some sort of drop issues at the college level. It doesn't seem like he really has them as much anymore. Could you see Jerry Jeudy maybe, I don't know, just figuring out a way to, just get better with his hands? Because if you just watch the routes, and you can even look and see how he gets graded out by PFF and Sports Info Solutions and these companies about how, or the next gen stats, just the amount of separation he gets is terrific. Have you watched Jeudy at all this year? And what do you think? Has it been disappointing to you? Were you expecting that? Have you even seen that? Or what do you think about Jeudy so far?
Yeah, and it's tough for a receiver because, we all saw, let's say, just the last game against the Chargers where that one deep shot was a chance for him to really put them in position to perhaps win that game, or at least tie it, and he dropped the football. At first, it looked like it was just a great defensive play, but when he went to the replay, like, wow, he had both hands on it. And again, I'm old enough to know, and we're probably the same age, so you've seen receivers go through this. Jerry Rice had this as a rookie where he dropped a lot of passes, and I'm not saying Jerry Jeudy is Jerry Rice, but we've seen receivers that are talented. We know Jerry Jeudy can play ball, right? And so him dropping passes, eventually he's going to overcome that, and we see it with, we saw it like with a guy like Julio Jones. And again, I'm not saying Jerry Jeudy is Julio Jones, but we've seen Julio Jones overcome the T.O.-like drops, and we saw T.O. overcome those T.O.-like drops.
Right.
For good receivers, it happens. You just, we just live in a social media, time where every mistake you make is going to be magnified and critiqued 17 different ways from Sunday. So I'm not worried about Jerry Jeudy, because he's getting open. So when you get open and you're able to get open quickly, you're going to always get targets. And so he's just going to have to start, zeroing in, focusing, and really start to make those receptions and avoid those drops. He's still a very fantastic football player and prospect.
Boy, is it true what you say about that damn Twitter invention is just all right. But all right, so a couple running back things. What about the 2021 class? It feels like in the dynasty community and in the Devy sort of space, like the people who play in the developmental leagues where they draft NCAA players to their taxi squads and stuff, it feels like a consensus is sort of come to fruition, I guess, that the top two are probably Najee Harris and Travis Etienne this year. what do you think about that? Do you agree with that consensus? And are there other guys that you look at and you say, damn, man, like this is a dude?
You know what I like about the running back position, and coming into the season, you had like a bunch of names, but like you say, you really had people honed in on Chuba Hubbard, Najee Harris, and also Travis Etienne. Maybe Najee Harris was third in that pecking order, but Harris showed that he can be an every down back, a 3-down player, because of his ability as a receiver, a downfield threat as a receiver, not just your standard swing, screens, flares, and flats type, as expectations type receiver. He's a guy that you could literally put in a passing game. And same with Etienne. I think that's an area where he grew this year as a receiver. We knew he had the explosive speed to take it a distance, but now you're seeing him grow in the passing game, being more of a downfield threat. And so I think those two guys are separating themselves, but there's a bunch of other backs that you can get that can be starters in the league that can be, really good player. I'm a big fan of Michael Carter out of North Carolina. One thing everyone talks about is teammate, but what they failed to mention about Carter is that Carter's doing the same thing at a more explosive rate, higher yards per carry, and does a fantastic job of making defenders miss. So it's hard to take on contact when defenders can't touch you. And that's something that Carter does exceptionally well. So I'm excited to see him get out there and compete down at the Senior Bowl. He's tremendous in that regard. Reminds me a lot of Darrell Henderson with the Rams and how he runs and able to string moves together and make guys miss and show the explosiveness. So I think Carter's a sleeper. Not sleeper because he's at a Power 5 school and everybody knows about him. He's going to the Senior Bowl. But Khalil Herbert was somebody last year that, I was at Boston College in Kansas game, so I was up there at Chestnut Hill scouting, the two prospects. And, obviously I was looking at A.J. Dillon, and obviously Kansas had Adeniji, who's with the Bengals, and they also had a really good defensive lineman in Darius Murang, who ended up going to the Tropical Bowl, 6'6", 295. And Puka Williams was standing out, but Herbert was standing out too. I was like, man, my goodness, this dude is the backup or the co-pilot at the position, and he's phenomenal. He killed Boston College that night, and it was a big reason why they upset Boston College. And so I wrote down in my notes, and it's on my website. It's like, he's one of those rare Power 5 sleepers, because it's hard to be a sleeper at a major program, right? But he was the backup, and I could see him being the starter in the NFL. So I was excited to talk about him throughout the whole draft process. And then he decides to grad transfer to Virginia Tech. I'm like, oh, that's cool, because he can go and be the starter. And lo and behold, he goes on there and goes also. Now everyone knows who Khalil Herbert is. And you're seeing everything. You saw everything this year with the Hokies that I saw up at Boston College that one night. And so now you're seeing another guy that no one is talking about as far as these upper echelon of backs, but Carter and Herbert, even Puka Williams. Those are guys that you can see have a huge impact as a rookie and may not be the one you draft really high,
Do you like Carter more? Do you like Carter more than what's the other, Williams? Do you like him? Do you like Carter more?
Yeah, I like Carter more because Carter has the elusiveness. Listen, if you can't, and this is something you learn as a running back, I remember when I was getting recruited, and I had my highlight tape, all.
Was this pre huddle? Did you have to send out an actual tape?
Yeah, I used to drive my parents crazy. I had used to get in bulk those VHS tapes, then go to the post office and had to, you have like 75 stamps on the damn package that you had to mail off, right? So I remember, I was sitting down with a coach at a school, and at a university, and I gave him my highlight tape. We're talking. And the first highlight, I put it on there, the reason why I put this highlight first, because I thought it showed like physicality and toughness. It was me just blowing through a hole, and it was just me and the safety, right? And I just lowered the shoulder and just like, boom, trucked him, right? And I ended up falling down, and it was maybe like a 25-yard gain, right? So I'm all excited because he's going to see like, oh, this dude run with some power.
Right.
He paused it, and he was like, yo, I need you to make him miss. It blew my mind. I was like, he said, you had a two-way go. You could have scored, but you decided to run him over. And I was like, well, the first quarter of the game, I wanted to set the tone. He was like, yeah, but see, I need you to make him miss. I was like, whoa, made me think. And that stuck with me from that point to now. So I said all that to say, when you're a guy like Williams takes on too much contact. He's tremendous. But at the NFL level, you have to be able to evade defenders. And you look at a guy like Carter, given the same opportunities as Williams, does a better job of not getting touched and making guys miss. So when you have the ability to make a defender miss, you're going to last a lot longer in the NFL because you're not going to take that contact. You minimize your opportunities or your chances of getting hurt. And as cool as it is in high school and in some stages of college to run through defenders, you don't want to keep running into people, man, because at the end of the day, these are NFL athletes. Yeah, you could run through somebody that will never touch a football field ever again, and it looks great on tape. But when you matched up against dudes that are just as good as you and strong, if not stronger, you don't want to be running into people, man. You want to make that guy miss and try to get to the end zone.
Well, whenever you said that, you talk about that dichotomy, like in Coach I don't know why it did, but it just reminds me of Memphis lately and all these guys that have been the kind of between the tackles runners that we've had come out of there that we've evaluated that have had better production. If you just look at the market share stuff from, even the touchdowns, the touches and stuff, like, you wonder, it's like, well, why is a guy like Tony Pollard or like Darrell Henderson or Antonio Gibson, why are these guys kind of backups that don't touch it as much? And you look at the film and you're like, well, look how much more elusive they are. So you look at the traits, man, and like I can't even name some of those dudes that were the leading touch guys for those Memphis teams while those guys were there. Whereas all three of the guys that I just mentioned are like making an impact today in the NFL for that exact same reason. Do you think that as far as anybody, I know I didn't ask you about this before, but I was just wondering if you thought, what do you think happened with Shaka Hubbard? I feel like it was a mistake for him to come back this year. I'm not exactly sure why. I'm not exactly sure why he might not have looked as good or why he might not have played as good, if an injury could have played into it or anything like that. Did you notice anything different about him this year? Because if we just look at it from just the amount of steam that he's getting from the draft community, what it seems like people are saying from behind the scenes, he would have probably been better off coming out last year based on that season. Do you agree with that? And what did you see out of Hubbard this season?
It's interesting because I think what we see out of Hubbard, and this was in my notes preseason going into this year when studying his game, because again, everybody talks running backs now. Sorry, when I hear a lot of talk about a guy, I kind of want to take a look at it because I want to make sure, because people get wild by highlights, right? And we'll see people do it again this weekend. Everybody is crapping on Justin Fields, but he goes out there and make a couple plays. Next thing you know, everybody's going to move him over Zach Wilson, just as if they didn't spend all last week talking about Zach Wilson being the next Joe Montana.
It's true.
So it all depends on which game you watch at the time, right? So when I heard a lot of people talk about Hubbard, and here's the knock I had on Hubbard. I saw this with a guy, and this was funny because me and one of my homies who's a standout tailback himself, he's big into high school recruiting, right? And he handles our high school recruiting scouting stuff at the Football Game Plan 400. So that's at footballgameplan400.com, right?
Okay.
And so he does a good job of scouting the high school talent, right? And so this was maybe almost like a decade ago now. If it may be so. So he was like, yo, check this guy out and let me know what you think and hit me back. So I'm like, all right, cool. So I watched the kid's tape. Then I hit him back. And I was like, man, why is he's running through gaping holes and like he's not getting touched. And and he was like, I know. And they say he's number one back in the country. I was like, man, I don't see it. I see him like, having free access to the second and third level. And he's a better athlete than everybody. He's just running. And I was like, I know. He said, yeah, that's why I said I want to know I'm not tripping. And the guy we were talking about was and so he showed me another tape of another guy that was coming in. I was like, this dude better than this guy. And he was like, you see it? I was like, yeah, this dude way better. And so that guy we're those two guys talk about were Jonathan Gray and Malcolm Brown. And so
yeah, I know both. I know both those dudes very, very, very well.
Exactly, right. And so we were like, I was like, man, this dude Gray, they're saying the best running back since Earl Campbell. I'm like, goodness, like he's running through so many open lanes.
Mm-hmm.
And when I watched Chuba Hubbard, and we talked about this philosophically, we played in traditional I formation offenses, right?
Mm-hmm.
So where your vision, you had to have the vision to get to the open lane, because if it was 34 dive and the 4 hole was closed, you got to figure out how to have success. But in today's game, with the spread offense, the wide hash marks and spreading the field, and these O linemen have wide splits, it widens out the defense. It's there for you. And we were just saying, like, man, we ran behind in this offensive scheme, we probably would have had 5,000 yards in the season. And so watching these guys run through this, you really have to, it takes a trained eye to see what is a given and what is something that was earned. And for Chuba Hubbard, when it was cloudy, talking about the gaps and the holes, he struggled to create. When it was there, he's a sprinter. He's going to hit it and go. And so, all we were infatuated by the long runs, but not about the process of how those long runs happen. And when you watch, a guy that can create pre-line of scrimmage, when things are shut off from him, that's the runner you want, because you're going to have to be able to be your own blocker, so to speak, be your own gap, so to speak, as a runner at the pro level. And if you can't create, you're more of a complimentary guy than you are a feature guy. And I think that's where Chuba right now is he's more of a complimentary guy. He's more of a guy that you can say, all right, he's like a Tony Pollard to Ezekiel Elliott. And that's not a knock. That's where he's probably best suited to play. In terms of pairing him up with someone, maybe a good fit for him would be in Chicago. Maybe you could pair him up with a Tariq Cohen and also a David Montgomery, or you find a place like New Orleans where you could pair him up with a Alvin Kamara and have the best of both worlds. So you really have to find somewhere a good fit for Chuba, because right now he's going to have to work. He's going to have to work to develop that vision that you need at the pro level.
Sounds to me like a kind of maybe like a Kerryon Johnson role, like how he has there, where it seems like they always just want him to be the third guy there when in Detroit. Who knows how the new regime will feel about him? But I do remember through Kerryon's process, he always said, it's crazy, man. Some of these guys, and with Jay Gray, I think some of that we can put on the Achilles. That really sapped him a little bit. I forgot if that was his junior or senior year, but I mean, I watched both. We were both watching that film at the exact same time, and I was coming to the same conclusions that you were, even way back then, before I even knew you. So definitely agree there. But with Kerryon, it's like I think some of these guys have mentalities too. They like Kerryon always said, like I even asked him, like, how do you feel about being a feature back and stuff? And he's like, well, in the NFL today, you need to split up snaps and you need to, stay healthy and all that. Like, even from the very beginning, he hasn't really had that mentality that he's going to be the big feature back that's going to get all the touches and stuff. So I think some of it's, do you think some of that's personality too? Is that personality stuff?
Right. Because it could be, because that's how these guys are coming up. Gone are the days where, you're the starter, you're the backup. We're going to give you 3 series. You're going to get 1. And then we're going to go 3-1. Nowadays, these guys come up through the ranks, splitting.
It feels like it, right? It
really they're used to it. This is their normal. So they don't. It's not like they don't want to carry the load. Everybody wants to carry the football, so that they are conditioned to be complementary guys or share the load. You look at a guy like who does a great job in working both backs, and they get tremendous production. Indianapolis, where you have Jonathan Taylor and Naheem Hines. That's a perfect example of today's NFL, as far as what you get out the backs. Or you could have a situation like Cleveland, where both backs are going to, should have gone over 1,000 yards if it wasn't for this last game.
What the hell happened?
Carries, But that's a situation where you have 2 number ones that could easily carry the load by themselves, but also work well in tandems.
All right. Before I get you out of here, brother, I know we're up against it. And as always, Love to have you on and appreciate you taking a little bit of time. You can find him on Twitter again at FB Game Plan. He is Emory Hunt. Just a couple quick Senior Bowl things because I titled this, Senior Bowl stuff. So just any of these guys who you're excited to, you already mentioned Carter, but just at the running back or wide receiver position, are there any of these guys that you're excited to see, you're excited to follow through the process, and that you think people are going to come out of that week in Mobile impressed with?
Dwayne Eskridge. I did the broadcast with Monmouth.
The wide receiver from, I believe, Western Michigan? Western Michigan?
Yep. I did the Monmouth, Western Michigan broadcast last year, and up there at Kalamazoo. And so last year he was the starting cornerback. And he had played receiver the year before they moved him to cornerback, take advantage of his athleticism and speed. And this year he moved back to wide receiver. But last year I was like, man, this dude has next level type acceleration. It's ridiculous. Like, I could see why they want him at receiver, but also corner, where if you're playing him in zone, his plant and drive on the football is going to be nuts. It's almost how like Dante Jackson was at LSU. You saw like ridiculous level of speed, but this dude actually had legit ball skills. So seeing him back on the receiver side, I was excited to see how he was going to, get reacclimated. And man, this dude averaged like 20 something, maybe 25 yards a catch this season. Throughout the course of the season, he had maybe 3 to 4 200-yard games. It was ridiculous the amount of production he had. And so he is a elite explosive talent. Someone that you could see fitting in right away as a touchdown maker, as a deep threat. You talk about your Jalen Waddles and your Devonta Smiths. Don't forget about Dwayne Eskridge. I think he is one that people need to spend more time in talking about, because he is so dynamic and explosive with the ball in his hands. And when you're that explosive, your speed changes how people defend you. It changes how people are going to cover you. And, you have someone with that level of speed opens things up for everybody else on your offense.
All right. That's it. That'll be the pod. See, we got to go out on big takes like that. Dwayne Eskridge. You talk about the Waddles, you talk about Devonta Smith. Don't forget about the Dwayne Eskridge. I love it, dude. That's awesome. All right, man. Well, fucking A, brother. I can't thank you enough.